Good morning, everyone. Today is Friday, September 3rd, 2021. I'm Barry Cowan, the president of the Deerfield Beach Computer Club since 2005, and I welcome you to today's Zoom class. I wish to thank the board and all participants for their continued loyal support of these Zoom presentations and our club site. Give particular recognition today to my co-host, Bob Gassicia, who's always with us, to my esteemed Vice President, Carol Friedman, who's going to be an integral part of today's presentation, well as our special guest, Edward Greenberg from Computers Direct. I'd like to make a few statements before. As you know, our reservation to CVE events personnel to resume live classes in our traditional location in November has been approved. And we haven't heard anything since, but I will give you or keep you informed as developments warrant. Today's meeting will be recorded. If you do not want to be viewed, turn off your video. During the presentation, your mics will be muted. So please use the chat board to post any questions or comments or raise your hand by clicking or tapping on the hand icon. September is sure an interesting month already. Labor Day is on Monday, September 6th. It's also the first night of the Jewish New Year, known as Rosh Hashanah. The 20th anniversary of the 9/11 tragedy is on Saturday, September 11th, and my 39th birthday is on Sunday, September 12th. The new iPhones may be announced on Tuesday, September 14th. Yom Kippur begins on also, I believe, in sundown September 15th. And the new iOS 15 software update may be released to the public that day or later. So it's going to be a very eventful month. And
October 5th is also the day that they're releasing Windows 11.
Oh, goody. Right. We'll wait for the comments on that one, Bob. I'm sure you'll let us know and keep in touch. So there are no further comments at this time. We're going to mute everybody. Okay. And now our Vice President, Carol Friedman, will introduce today's guest speaker, Edward Greenberg. So Carol, take it away.
Great, thank you, Barry. So let me just move a few things around here so I can see easily. And this hopefully will be a treat for all of us. And it's my pleasure to get to introduce Edward Greenberg, who some of us, I think, already know and may know well. He is our local computer expert at Computers Direct, right around the corner from Century Village. And he's taken good care of many of our computers and other pieces of equipment. He's got really a very interesting background. You know how there are those people that you meet and you think, oh my God, that guy is a computer genius. Well, he's likely one of those, as well as a real tech nerd and geek. And he started being that way very early on. You know, from the time he was 8, he was fixing his dad's computers, and that was back in the day when nobody had computers. And he ran a Novell network, for anybody that goes way back and remembers Novell, while he was in high school. He was entrepreneuring even then, and he started selling modems, and he had a billboard while he was in high school and started doing that when he was 12. And I'm sure there's a whole long list of other things like that. You know, I think that probably one of his greatest pleasures is having his hands on people's equipment or researching about them. And he's been at Computers Direct for a little over 20 years. And we're very, very lucky because not only is he brilliant at fixing them, but he stays on top of what's happening in the industry and knows ahead of time what things are coming in and going out. He sees our equipment and knows what stuff lasts and what breaks. So he can be a real useful resource for us in making appropriate choices about what to fix and what to buy and things like that. So hopefully we're going to get a good chance to tap his brains today and begin to look over his shoulder and behind the scenes a little bit at what he does with our stuff when it comes in. So I want to say a little bit, or give him a chance to say a little bit about his experience of the kinds of clients that he deals with and how they are potentially like or not like our club members. So Edward, are you there? And do you want to come on? And
yeah, I'm here. You guys can hear me. I
Great.
take it. Okay,
Awesome.
good. So hi, good morning, everybody. So Carol, thank you for the introduction. And so I just didn't catch that last question. You said with my customers, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, so would you just comment a little about the kinds of customers you deal with and how they're like our club members or not?
Oh, okay. Well, we do have, being a retail store, we do obviously lots and lots of our customers come from Century Village. We get people in all the time. They have slow computers. It doesn't boot. We do a lot of corporate customers as well, but they're not the walk-in. And it's a fairly good balance that we have between the two that lets us keep our retail walk-in, because without you guys, we would not even have a storefront anymore, because we would just have moved to some commercial unit and help businesses. But having a good local community that trusts us to get the computer service, it works out great for us and lets us still be here. And yeah, our customers just, they have the same issues everyone else has, with a lot of slow computers. We get a lot of panic people, obviously, when their computers don't boot and everything else. But, our largest customer is Century Village. And that's why our mantra has been like, treat everyone like our mom, because I don't want to treat someone and treat someone poorly or be accused of scamming them at some point, because that's how I get all my business is making you guys happy. And then you refer someone and you refer someone and you refer something, because that's the only way to stay open. Because otherwise, they change their name in 1 month, there's something else in a new location. And that's what's kept us here for 23 years now.
Yeah.
So
Edward, I'm gonna put up the list in a minute of the things that you shared when you and I talked before we set up this session, of the kinds of things that people come in with. But I'm curious, in the community here in the Deerfield Boca area, we've got probably a huge range of people's expertise. But do you find that people come in knowing a good bit about computers, or do they come in with a lot of, minimal knowledge and misperceptions and stuff like that? And then we're going to talk some about what those things are like.
Well, yeah, we do get a lot of misconceptions. YouTube, and that's any age range. It's everything from I get tons of calls because someone watched a YouTube video and it's like, oh, I can do this. I'm like, no, not really. They just want your ad money. Oh, that's a big thing. YouTube videos, a lot of people who post, we get a lot of people who want to build computers during the pandemic. And it's people don't realize that a lot of YouTube ads, they're just for ad money. That's it. YouTube videos are for ad money. But we get a lot of knowledgeable people in, and a lot of it has to do with people heard something from a friend. So they have a rough idea of something, and we usually can help flesh it out, or, their computer's acting up and let me take care of that. So sorry, guys. Let me go fix that real quick, guys. I'm so sorry. Hold on.
Okay, so while he's doing that,
There we go.
we've
Hi,
got,
sorry, I had to turn off my phone ringer there.
no worries.
Yep. So, I mean, we get a wide swath, and most of it has to do with those. You get a lot of old info, like people and cookies. If we could have a whole thing on cookies, but the knowledge people know about cookies is from 20 years ago. And that could be a whole nother class, how cookies aren't a bad thing anymore.
Yeah,
So
so
it's very mixed. I'll say that.
So I just want to reinforce also, since I end up talking to a lot of those people, that, I know from what I see in your store, you get a lot of people who are like us, who have mixed background and have a little bit of information, but encounter things where we really don't know or understand. So
Yeah.
part of what we're hoping you're going to be able to do now is give us a little bit of the background that will help us with those choices. And you had said that the first item up here, the one where people say my computer's running really slow,
Oh yeah, for
is
sure.
really the top one that you see.
Yes.
And
So
before you go into it, we're gonna talk more now about that and how you can tell, and then we're gonna come back after and talk as we have time about some of the rest of these. And people can ask, we're making a lot of time so people can ask questions.
Mhm.
So I'm going to move on to the next slide for you, where you can talk about slow computers.
Oh yeah, slow computers. So most common thing we hear is my computer's running slow. And my first question to them, what is slow? And I will tell you the most typical answer we hear is everything. And unfortunately, hearing everything makes it super duper hard. So we like to dig in a little bit. And you can see on the slide that we have up here, exactly, is it the sign on, like when you type in your username to get to the desktop, or is it when you go to a web page and it loads slowly? That's one of the biggest differences between the two. And that tells us a lot if it's your computer or possibly your internet connection or some third party issue. So it's
And so do you find that a lot of people have trouble just being able to sign on, or trouble with it being really slow in loading, where the icons don't get on the desktop and the programs don't start running?
Well, yeah, and most definitely that is one of our biggest things. When people say, oh, it takes 15 minutes to boot up my computer, well, they mean from the time they hit that button to the time they can actually go to a website, they're waiting for the icons, the desktop, and everything else to load. And that's when we'll tell someone, well, that's not everything, that's your computer. Because if it was everything, solitaire would be slow and everything else, but that's your boot up, and that's usually what we want to focus on first.
Okay, so I'm gonna put up the slide for you about how you go about doing that. So here we go. Whoops, there you.
So one of the most useful utilities you have on your computer is your task manager. And one of the easiest ways to get to it is it's right click on your taskbar. I think it says desktop on the slide, but it's a taskbar. And then you can left click on the task manager. And when you open it up, it may open smaller. There should be a little button that says more details. If it comes up, if it doesn't look like this, there's a more details button. And what the task manager is showing you, it's showing you the programs you're running. It's showing you their resource usage. And in the first columns, you'll see the name, the app. You'll see whether it's frozen, which we don't see any frozen. That's status column, which is good. When something's not responding, it would be in the status column. The CPU column is showing how much of your CPU or the engine it's using. And you can see most of the programs, we're not maxing it out. You can see the memory column next, and you can see Google Chrome. And when people say Google Chrome's a memory hog, well, you can see that there's 1.7 gigs of RAM being used, and that is really normal. That's not out of the ordinary. And then the last column, that is a nice, well-performing machine, because you can see that disk usage is pretty low. The person's not doing a lot on their hard drive, so this computer is probably running pretty decently. Their CPU is not at max, their disk isn't maxed, and even though their RAM's kind of high use, this is probably a pretty well-running computer. And for something like this, if someone said their computer was slow, this is somewhere we'd lean like, hey, maybe it's time for a new computer. When we have some issues, let's say on that disk column, and it comes up like this.
All right, wait a second.
Yeah, no worries. So that disk column you see right there can also be seen under the performance tab at the top. And that's one of the places I show people because it's a little more visual.
Okay, I'm gonna switch it.
So as you can see here under the performance tab, this is a different machine, and this is to show you what happens for disk performance. Now, when we see disk performance like this, one of the biggest things we're going to tell you is that it's probably time for a new disk drive, whether it's failing, which is a big possibility whenever it's under active time like this, 100%, or that it's just old and slowing down, and hard drives do definitely slow down. And if you can see that chart, this is not your hard drive's capacity. This is your hard drive's ability to respond to new commands. So if you go to open up a new website, well, it has to download the pictures and the documents and all the little things that make that website play, the videos, the audio, everything. And that's downloaded to your hard drive before it's even displayed to you. So if you have a hard drive in your computer that's failing or slowing down, like you see here, you are going to have a really poor experience booting your computer, going to web pages, and everything else in between. And something like this, we usually assume if it sits like this for about 5 minutes, we usually think that your drive's probably failing, or just the spindle or the motor that spins it is slowing down. The other possibility is you do have a lot of startup programs, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to have a ton of startup programs, there are solutions to make your computer run quick again, whether it's that, a failing drive, or just a slow drive. And one of the things we've talked about, I'm sure everyone's heard about, is solid state disks. And one of the big differences with a solid state disk is, one, you no longer have that motor. The motor's gone. You've moved to what they call flash memory. And if you're used to the same changeover, they went from the CRT tubes, if you guys remember. We went from the old TVs with the tubes in them to they went to transistor TVs when Zenith came out, their solid state televisions, and they got way more reliable, or the transistor radios from the 70s. It's the same idea. We're moving away from mechanical parts to electronic parts, and it's just way more reliable and faster.
Eddie, can I just say, Edward, can I say one thing?
Sure.
Can we assume that all of these screens are from a Windows 10 computer?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, this is Windows 10. I mean, Windows 8, to be honest with you, looks the same, but this is Windows 10. Yeah.
So here's the next one.
So this is what we wanted to show you here real quick. This is a solid state disk. So we actually put this under load to show you it at 100%. And that's to show you that read speed in the bottom corner. And if you, Carol, you go back real quick, I want to show people that read speed. So if you look in the bottom corner on this one, within at 100%, we're getting a read speed of 2 megabytes a second. And if you are trying to load a program or do work, 2 megabytes a second is like the speed of a floppy disk. We're talking really, really slow. A cheap little USB key you get at Target, you might get 15 or 20. For your hard drive to be getting 2, there's usually an issue. And if we go back forward again, you can see the same info.
On a second, sorry.
No worries. You can see the same read speed. Now, this is off a Samsung SSD. This is a shot from my computer, and I actually ran a performance test so I could get a 100% active time. But if you look, that read speed is 540 megabytes a second. That's nearly the contents of a CD-ROM transferring every single second. And that's way more performance. I mean, that's literally the difference of what? Almost 300 times the amount of data, maybe 270 times 2 megs. So it can be a big difference. And if this was even maxed out, it's not like your computer would still be running slow. I mean, my computer like that was still super, super responsive.
So Eddie,
Mhm.
is this something that people, when they know that they've got a really slow computer, is this one of the first things they should check?
Yeah. So yeah, when your computer is running slow, the task manager, and the reason we're showing you guys this today, is a slow hard drive or a failing hard drive is one of the biggest reasons that we have customers come in to say their computer is running slow. And one of the biggest deals that we tell people is that once you start seeing this slowness, it's usually an indicator of something failing. And making sure that before this you have a backup is great. And once we though start hitting these things, it can get harder and harder to recover fully. And so we know we're going to talk about this later, but backups are always a great solution before we get to this point. But yeah, using your task manager, if you open it up and check out the disk and you see my disk's at 100% and it stays like that for more than 5 minutes or so, that's definitely a good indicator that something on the computer is probably going to go bad shortly. Whether or not it has failed already, your hard drive running at 100% all the time, you are just asking for problems. It's not like you would sit and run your car idling at 100% engine all the time. It's going to lead to premature failure. And catching that early is going to save you from losing your data.
So we're going to look at another example here, which lets you begin to make some other determinations, right?
Yep.
You want to
Yep.
talk about this one?
So this here actually shows you the individual processes. And one of the things you can see here is that you can see that under disk, you can notice that each one is only using such a very, very little amount, and it's at 100% active time again. So imagine you're sitting there and you just opened up one little program and it takes 10 minutes. Well, if that program can only read 0.7 megabytes a second, like you can see from the first item SkyDrive, which is now OneDrive, and you can see some of the other tasks running that they don't even add up to 2. And, you know, if you can't transfer 2 megabytes a second, you are going to have a really poor experience using your computer. And when we see things like this, where individual programs they can't use any of the disk, we're usually waiting for that hard disk to fail. And at this point, it may already be too late, because the computer doesn't like to tell you. Windows has no real built-in mechanism to say, hey, I've gone bad. It does have a log. It doesn't tell you. It's pretty rough sometimes.
So if it's not the disk, and so remind us of how you can tell that it might be something else, and then we'll look at what you can do if it is.
Sure. So a couple of the other things we look at is CPU usage. Now, your CPU, let's say you did have a solid state disk or SSD installed already. Your CPU hitting up a higher speeds, that's going to be pretty normal, because the hard drive is like the fuel and the CPU is the engine. And if you can feed that engine more fuel, it's going to be more used. So you see that CPU in this instance is only at 2%. That's because that disk being at 100% capacity or 100% load, it can't get the fuel there. So it can't burn it, basically. The CPU is dependent on the disk feeding it information. And the faster your disk, the better it works, it feeds it. If your CPU is, let's say, constantly at 90%, that might be the time to get a CPU upgrade or get a faster computer, or remove some programs running on your computer. You could have something in the background. That right there, though, is not usually indicative of computer failure. Let's say you have high CPU. That's usually indicative of either background programs, malware, or just the fact that you need a faster computer. Under memory use, and that's another one that's big. If you have a lot of tabs open in web browsers, Google Chrome with 10 or 15 tabs, if we saw that previous slide, was using 1.7 gigs of the RAM, and that's not unheard of. And on RAM, the big number we look at is 75%. If you see your RAM use is at 75%, it is time to add RAM, because RAM itself will never make your computer faster. It just makes it keep the performance it should have. And anytime that RAM use gets high, and again, 75% is our magic little number we look at, that's when we suggest more RAM.
Okay, so let's look at some of the things that you can check. You know, if you find, so remind us again of how you can tell that it could be CPU or memory problems rather than disk, so they know that they can then check and do some of these things.
Yep, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. So again, CPU use, you can check for the programs that are running. You know, any programs that are running, you can definitely shut down, take them out of your startup. In the task manager in Windows 10 happens to also be, if you see there's a startup tab, and you can see, I don't think we have a slide for that, but under the startup tab, you can see your startup programs. And if your CPU usage is high, that's definitely a place that you can shut them down. You can, again, and that's good for the second point as well, the amount of memory. If you're using a program or you don't use it, like, and it's in your startup, you can definitely, again, go to the startup tab under Task Manager and turn it off and see if it gets better. And as far as your programs using memory, that's definitely a good point. If you see some program you don't recognize using a lot of CPU or memory, that's a great time to run an antivirus scan, because that could definitely be malware, because the target of a lot of malware these days isn't to just encrypt your files. You hear about ransomware, but a lot of people end up with coin mining software, which you've heard of Bitcoin and Monero and all these other Dogecoin, all these other ones. Some of the malware that exists in the world these days uses your computer to mine coins for other people. And that would show up as CPU or memory use. And again, the point of taking programs out of your startup and off your desktop. And that's another fun one. Windows is one of the unique operating systems that if you have a lot of icons on your desktop, it will cause your computer to be sluggish at the desktop. So keeping your desktop clear of a lot of icons is actually a very important step in Windows. Just because every time you look at your desktop, if you have a ton of icons, Windows wants to update all that information with the thumbnail and the picture size and all those things constantly. So that is another way of speeding up your machine. Now, if you've noticed that your computer, the hard drive is running 100%, or it takes a really long time to boot up and the hard drive never relaxes, we call it, or calms down, there's not much we're going to recommend except stop. And that's because we don't know if your computer is failing. And at this point, we don't know, if you don't already have a backup of your computer or have not been making regular backups, trying to make a backup could actually cause you some issues. And I think we have that on the next slide.
Yep, and we're going to go there in just a sec.
Okay.
So we're going to talk some about backup. And, I don't know about you. I can tell you about me, and probably Barry will say the same. We know we should. This is one of those preventive things, but almost nobody does. So we're going to do another little quick promo for why it's important and what kinds of things you should be backing up. And then, potentially what's the easiest way to be able to do it? Because if it isn't easy, we're not going to. So, okay.
Oh yeah, if it's not easy and it doesn't give you some instant gratification, most people do not want to do it. So it's definitely understandable. Myself, I don't know if I make full backups of my computer all the time. For me, I know my businesses, I get emails all day, but I also use multiple online file storage services to make sure that I have duplicates of my important information. But they do not make a good backup. And we've had experiences about OneDrive, and I think we'll get back to that later.
Yeah, you will.
Some backup solutions. But backing up your data is important, and you do not wait till your car. You don't wait till your computer's failing to make a backup. It's like the analogy. Let's say you have no oil in your car and you've been driving your car and it starts having problems. Running out to Advanced Auto Parts and putting in a quart of oil isn't going to fix your engine at that point. The damage has already been done. And that's like backups.
So let's stop for a second here and reinforce some stuff. So the notion of backing everything up seems kind of daunting. You're going to show us some ways to do that potentially as easily as possible.
Yep.
But, one of the things that I tell people is that everything on your computer is not equal. There are certain things that matter to you more than others, and probably most of it are your documents and your pictures. So at the very least, you want to make sure that you have those backed up. And, you were saying, Eddie, when we were talking, that people come in and they don't necessarily want to do the stuff that needs to happen, but they want you to get their data. Mm-hmm. And so, at some point you can't anymore, right?
Oh, for sure. And when I can't, we send it out to one or two, we end up sending it to laboratories, and that gets expensive. I just had a quote for someone, it was $1,300. And I don't think they did it. And it's hard because people at that point have to make a decision if their data is worth X amount of dollars. And that's a hard choice sometimes.
So you've got an easier choice ahead of time, which is to back up the really crucial stuff. at least often enough that your heart doesn't break when you lose it, and to potentially replace that hard drive before it goes and you've lost everything, and it's going to be very expensive, if possible at all, to
Oh, yeah,
get
for
it
sure.
back.
I mean, I've definitely had hard drives die on me in the process of backing them up. And people come in like, can you make a backup? I'm like, I am, and it might still fail. Because one thing, that the reason that a backup is not a good idea when your hard drive is starting to fail or it's going bad is that you're stressing it out. The most stressful thing you can do to the drive is read it. And when you're trying to read every single little piece of data, that is the most stressful thing you can do to it. So when it's already failing and you want to copy it, then we do it all the time. But we also usually warn people that it may not work, and it doesn't always work.
Okay, so let's look at some things that you can do if you are going to try to back it up.
Okay.
So,
Yep. And so here's the thing. There's two different, Windows 10 has two built-in backup features. And then we also talk about cloud storage. And that's external hard drives. Because if you're using the built-in Windows backup, you'll be using external hard drive or a USB key or solid state. And we do recommend external solid state disks for backup. The main reason we suggest them over a regular drive is that if you drop a regular external hard drive, it fails. And if you drop an external SSD, you bend over and pick it up. And that's the difference. It keeps working. So that's just another thing to keep in mind, is that they even have these portable or external solid state disks now that even if you drop them, you just keep chugging along like nothing happened.
and are they god awful expensive?
So a 500 gig portable SSD can be had for between $55 to $70 right now, depending on the brand. So for most people, and I'm going to say most people, 500 gigs would suffice for 95% of my customers. I have a very few amount of customers that have over 100 gigs of data, let alone 500. And there are two. Now, one thing I do want to mention, there are two built-in backups in Windows 10. One is called File History, which we are not really getting in here today. That basically keeps a copy of your files whenever you keep an external drive or USB key plugged in. And then there's another built-in backup called Windows 7 Backup for Windows 10. And that is a tool we're going to be talking about today, because this makes a easy to restore, or at least easy for me. It's easy for a tech guy, I'll say, but it's a simple restore, because when you have that backup made for your computer, it doesn't just save your data, it saves your programs, it saves everything. And it just makes it easier to get back to where you started. So instead of you having to reinstall programs and reconnect and reinstall mail and redo this, if you made a Windows 7 backup for Windows 10, or that's the name of the utility, that's a full, what they call image of your computer. It can get you back up and working in the amount of time it takes for it to be restored to your disk. And something else I'm going to discuss after this is cloud storage. And there is a bunch of cloud storage providers. They don't back up and clone your disk or image your disk like this. They just do file backup. And for online backup, that's much better, because it's a lot of overhead to try to transfer your Windows over the internet. You are there for days. And that's why most of your online backups, you'll see, we just do files. And though for local backup, we do try to do a full backup, because it's going to let you get back to normal much faster. It takes a long time sometimes to get all the things back the way you like.
So that was a lot in a pretty short time.
Sorry.
That's okay. We're looking at settings, and we're looking at backup under settings.
Yep.
And I've got two parts of the screen here. So here's the first part, and here's the second part, which is about choosing a backup solution. And this is in several slides showing you what your choices can be and how you can go about doing it. And then this somewhat hard to read, very pale blue link here that will be on our handouts gives you the step-by-step of how to do it. And let me see. No. So do you want to just talk through a little bit, just briefly, the kinds of steps so that people realize, oh, this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be?
Oh yeah. So we'll go through the steps. So as Carol was saying, so this is under settings. You would open up this little settings gear, which is under the start button on the wherever your start button is, usually in the bottom left corner of your screen. It's that little gear that you see come up. And when you go there, you'll go to update and security. And then you can see that on the left side below the search box, it says update and security on there. And if you look down about 4 icons, and it may differ depending on the version of Windows 10 you have, because there are different versions, it should say backup. And what's important is if you look on the right side, you'll see looking for older backup. And that's the one we are discussing today. Is looking for older backup, go to backup and restore. Now you can definitely use the upper one, and you can definitely go along with that. That's a very simple one. But today we're going to be talking about the full backup. So you have a full image of your computer. And the nice thing is, I said, it's everything. You don't have to worry like, oh, did I forget this or this? It's everything. And as you're going to click on the go to backup and restore, there's a little thing right there that says go to backup and restore Windows 7 under looking for older backup. And when you click that, it's going to take you to the following screen. Do you have that right?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So do you want me to bring that up? I can bring that up if you want.
No.
Okay, no problem. So the next screen, which is going to be listed on the link for Windows Central, is going to take you to the next screen, and it's going to say create a system image. And once you do that, it's going to walk you through and say, hey, do you want everything? And if you do, you're just going to continue along. It's pretty simple because it's a whole bunch of yes, 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 next, next, next. And as long as you have an external drive plugged in with enough room, it's going to make an external full backup of your entire computer.
So how
And-
much is enough room?
Well, to tell how much room that you're going to need on your computer, you would go to the File Explorer. I don't believe we have a slide for this one, do we?
No.
So on your Windows desktop, if you're in Windows, you notice on your taskbar, you have a little manila folder. That little manila folder is called File Explorer or Windows Explorer. And everything that you're going to want to find on your computer is listed there. In Windows 10, it takes you by default to a little screen called Quick Access. I'm sure we've all seen that before. And it will show you your disks where you can see.
Hold on 1 second, Eddie. Let me see if I can get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to stop that share.
Yep.
And sorry. All right, so now we want to go to, actually,
Yeah, on the bottom bar, you should have
yeah,
a little
just a
manila.
second. I've got to make this a lot smaller. Although I may not be able to, because you can't see it, right? You can't see the bottom of the thing there.
Mm-mm.
Hold on 1 sec. Okay. Now. Sorry, people. Just bear with me a second.
Edward, there was a chat question about whether you're going to cover Apple devices. You're using this for Microsoft, so you're going to cover iCloud as part of your storage options.
Well, today is a Windows cover. We can definitely talk about iCloud. Unfortunately for Apple, to figure out if your drive is failing is a lot harder, but I'm going to be very simple. iCloud is a click and forget solution. It's bothers you the minute you make an account on an Apple computer to make an iCloud account. And Apple has made a very good job at monetizing iCloud, and they've made a really good job at putting it in your face. To get iCloud running, I'm going to let you guys know it's really point and click. And we can definitely probably do a demonstration on that at some point. I can talk to Carol and Barry. But for Mac users, iCloud is very simple. Apple has done a great job at putting a robust backup system in place with phone support and everything. It's much easier to use, I will say, than Windows backup. Apple used to have their time capsules and everything, which they've discontinued. And this is more like, we're doing local backup. And iCloud is specifically cloud storage. And since iCloud only applies to Apple's, the cloud storage that we talk about applies to Windows and Apple computers, or Windows and Mac computers that we use in store. iCloud's a great solution, but for some people it gets a little pricey.
Thank you. So now we're going to look at, whoops, there we go.
So if you see, this is quick access. So when you click that little manila folder, this is what you get first. And if on the left side, you scroll down a little bit, you'll see this PC. And when you click this PC, this is like my computer from Windows 7. I don't know why they went to quick access, but this is what used to be my computer. And you can see right there, the size of the disk drive. And if you hover over it or you look below it, depending how it is, you'll hover and you'll see it. Sometimes you'll see it if it's in the tile format, like it's on Carol's computer. But when you hover over it, it'll tell you your free space and your total size. If you subtract that free space from the total size, it'll tell you how much space you need. I always tell people to have at least 10 to 20% more than it recommends, because Windows does keep some extra data about your computer there.
So you're talking about the free space on your computer for when you're going to begin to back up. That's not the size of whatever you're going to back up to. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, what the size of what you're going to back up to is whatever you've purchased. To know what you need, though, you would subtract the free space from the available space, or you can also right click on it. And if you right click on it and go to properties, it'll give you a bunch of info also. And you can see the used space is 196 gigs or 210 billion bytes. And as long as you had at least, I'd say, a 250 gig drive, you'd be able to back this up, make one image without a problem. If you want to be able to keep multiple copies of your computer at different dates, you want to have a larger drive to accommodate that. But
okay, sorry. So that's a really big deal, because if you're already getting to a hard drive that's not functioning very well, you don't have a whole lot of space left to be able to do much with it. Is that correct? If you're looking at this example.
Well, I don't know what you mean, Carol. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. If one of the reasons that your hard drive may not be working well is because it has very little capacity left.
So that right there, Carol, I know we discussed, that has to do with SSDs. When SSDs get below 20% capacity, they end up having a lot of problems.
Well, let's forget we're talking about an SSD here. Let's just figure we're talking about an ordinary drive. That if you've got an ordinary drive that is like 75% already utilized here, which is what you can visually see, you don't have a lot of space left for backing up, if according to what you just said, correct?
Well, no, but the backup doesn't go onto the same drive. That would be to an external drive. So the amount of free space here doesn't. But
didn't you just say that you need to have at least 40 gigs on the drive you're backing up, as well as whatever you're going to use on the on whatever you're backing it up to?
So that more, I think we discussed, you need that space for like Windows updates, but no, you don't need to have the amount of space. It's the amount of free space plus about 10 to 20% sometimes is what I warn people to have for an external drive. So if like on this, having a 250 gig drive would have just around just barely enough space, but I would recommend at least a 500 gig to back this up. I would use a 500 gig or 500 gig drive at least to back that up.
Okay, so let's stop for a minute and take questions from people, and then we'll go on to look at some of the other things worth considering here. So do people have questions?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Ken.
You are Ed is for his first name, your first name, right? Correct?
Yes, sir. Yep.
You are talking Microsoft products now. My questions are, what does this apply to Apple products too?
Well, if you were running Windows 10 on your Apple computer, yes, it would apply. But if you're running Mac OS, no, none of this applies on Mac OS. I mean, the general concept that your drive can fail totally happens. But the methodologies and the methodologies you would use for checking that is different on Mac. That's called the activity monitor. And you can definitely, if you guys had more questions or want information how to find this out on Apple as well, I could definitely get you guys some information. My contact info is going to be available, I'm sure, with this.
Okay.
And there is a way to go through the activity monitor on Apple, which is the equivalent of the task manager, to look at disk usage. And we do the same thing. Unfortunately, on Apple, they use a much more, it's an older format that is not as straightforward to understand. It's equal to the old Unix operating system, which Mac OS is based on. If you guys don't know, Mac OS is based on a 50-year-old operating system called Unix. And they have systems in place for this already and different methodologies and everything else. And yeah.
So do people have questions about what Edward has covered so far about Windows computers?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go.
I have a regular drive. Can you switch that regular drive to an SSD?
Yeah, and yeah, most definitely that is something we do a lot of. Our most common thing, and I'll tell you guys the price, is one of our most common repairs on SSDs or bad drives is an upgrade to like a 250 gig SSD, and something that we usually charge around $149. So if you can fit in with a 250 gig SSD, the transfer, the installation, all that we do, and it's like $149. And if you have a regular hard drive, you go to SSD, you can ask anyone we've done it for. It's day and night. There's no comparison. It's probably the best upgrade they've had for computers in a long time. And we can do those on Macs too. If you have a Fusion drive, if you have a regular hard drive on your iMac, Mac, all that, it applies the same. We do Mac transfers and clones, everything except the MacBook Pros from like 2016 forward, because they have integrated hard drives at this point. They're not removable.
And I'm one of those people who did it, and I can tell you it made an enormous difference in my computer. Dorothy, you have a question?
Yes, I have a 1 terabyte external drive. Does it override the information? Because I've been backing up an old computer and I wanted to back up my newer computer. So if I go to backup and restore, will it overrun the old data?
The answer is it shouldn't. Will it? Possibly. I would always recommend to use a separate drive for backups for different computers. It's not supposed to override your backup, but it definitely has, and I've definitely seen it cause issues. So it's not something that I recommend people to do.
Can they, if they've got the space on the drive, can they name the next backup so that it retains the earlier one and keeps the new one separate?
Unfortunately not. The backup for Windows 10 is part of the system restore feature, and the backup uses the system volume information folders, and it uses another folder on your drive to keep some of this data. So no, you don't get to pick a name or anything else with the built-in Windows backup.
Can I erase the data on the older drive?
Oh, sure. You could, you could format it, but you will lose whatever you previously had.
Yeah,
but yeah, you could
okay.
format it and reuse it as much as you want. That's what formatting is for.
And you
Okay.
can set your backup options to be, it depends. If it's incremental, you know, you don't have to back up the same thing all the time,
Barry-
just the files that have changed. Is that correct?
Barry, we did not go over incremental backups or full backups. We went over a system image backup. And
Okay.
a system image backup is a one image item. It's not an incremental or a differential or all those other fancy terms they got. This is a system image. So it's a 0 and 1 copy of all of the little bits of data on the entire partition. So no, that one is, this is a system image. It's there are other programs, Barry, that do that kind of stuff. And we were just trying to go with what was built into Windows for free.
Okay, so you're really doing a one click and it's up and running.
Yeah, I mean, with the restore from this data, if you have the hard drive, you've backed it up, you boot up with a USB, a Windows 10 USB key, which is available for free download from Microsoft's website. It's immediate with the media creation tool. And if you boot up with a Windows 10 USB key and your external drive, there's a button that says restore a system image. You click it, it restores it, you're up and running again. Now that's after you've resolved whatever issue was wrong with the computer. And that's one of the things that, you know, customers bring us their system image backup. We return a running computer how it was before it failed.
So Eddie, I'm sorry, Barry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So Eddie, is the file history what you would use if you wanted to incrementally back up certain parts of your drive?
So file history is a continuous backup program. It can keep versions. It does have versioning built in, which is just keeping older versions of files.
Okay.
And file history doesn't get your programs. It doesn't get anything else. It's made for mostly your user folders, like your My Docs, My Pictures, your desktop. And for a lot of people, that does do a great job storing your files.
Yes.
The reality for some people, though, and it depends what you do on your computer. Some people, if you are just an app user and you use websites, you don't have per se a lot of files. You just have a lot of setup and you like the way it's set up. You could be a person who keeps everything on the computer, and file history will help with that too. And I will say just real quick, for the Mac users, you guys do have a built-in app also. It's called Time Machine. And with an external hard drive, Time Machine will do exactly the same thing that the Windows 7 backup and file history. They do it all in one program. So it is much more click and forget on Apple. I will tell you that. And if someone does need help doing it, it is a much quicker process on Macintosh. Straightforward about that.
How
Much
about
simpler.
cloud options like iDrive, things like that?
So iDrive is my preferred cloud backup. And one of the biggest reasons I like iDrive is because they have an 800 number for support. Beyond the price, they charge $8 for the first year. They charge $80 a year after that. You get 5 computers with up to 5,000 gigs of backup. And it's unbeatable. I've called them. I've had to have issues. I had an issue with a backup. I called them up. They had me resolved in a couple hours. And they do a great job. I don't work for them. I don't affiliate with them. But they have saved my customers' butts plenty of times. And for $8 for the first year, you can't complain it doesn't work. And prominently on their website, if you guys go to iDrive.com, in the bottom right of the upper part of the website is an 800 number open from 6 to 6. So it's unbeatable. You cannot beat the fact that someone still has a phone number. Something that's really hard, and this is something me and Carol actually discussed, is OneDrive. And you guys see OneDrive because Microsoft, if you run Windows, pushes OneDrive. They do have OneDrive for Mac also, because OneDrive is and you can see it there. They do push it because that's their file sync that they try to compete with iCloud. iCloud, I personally think, is a better solution than OneDrive. But OneDrive itself is not backup as much as it's file sharing. The big downside, I've had 2 customers now that got locked out of their Microsoft accounts, and Microsoft does not have a phone number for OneDrive. They are out in the cold. They have lost their data because OneDrive does not have phone support. If you have a problem and all of your data is in OneDrive with Microsoft, they don't help you. And that's something I can never suggest to people to have. Because if you can't get support when it doesn't work, what are you going to do? It's not good.
iDrive is one word, by the way.
Yeah, one word. Yep, iDrive.com, and it works on Mac. So when I say PC, I mean Mac also. You can read your files from anywhere. But for $8 for the first year and $80 a year after that, it is the easiest, cheapest solution I know for people to set and forget.
Eddie,
And
how many devices does it cover?
5 devices, 5,000 gigs. And you can't beat that. There's just nothing that beats it. And it has 800 number for support. But the big deal is every single day you can get an email saying my backup worked. Every single day you can get an email. Windows backup doesn't do that. iCloud doesn't do that. Time Machine doesn't do that. None of these programs do that, where cloud providers, one of the big feel good things is they let you know when it works and they let you know when it fails. And because most people do not pay attention, and I'm going to come back, Carol, as you said, no one backs up their computers. No one does. And having something do it for you takes away that headache and that problem.
Sorry, I'm wanting to get. I can't do it. I was trying to get, sorry.
Go ahead. Eddie, do those backup programs like iDrive screen for viruses and things like that?
No, because they don't look at your data. You'd be, if they screened your data, that would be that would mean they're looking at your data. They are a raw backup provider. So if you're infected, yes, you're going to move your malware. Now, you're not going to infect them because they don't touch your data. Your data is in its own little container. So can you back up a malware? Totally can, because they're data agnostic. They don't look at your data.
And they don't log anything, correct?
Well, I'm sure they log. Well, here's the thing. As far as logging, I'm sure that they log that people connect to their service. But the big deal with iDrive is you can set your own encryption keys. So if you really are privacy concerned, you can set your own encryption key on iDrive. You can set it for whatever you want. And in the end, they can't read your data. And that's a big deal, because if you sign up an account with them and you forget your encryption key, your data's gone. It's just as good as you never made a backup. So I do dental offices, and for HIPAA compliance, we have to set encryption keys. And what I do is I take that piece of paper and I print it out and I say, here's a copy for you. Here's 2 more copies for you. Put this in your safe, put it in your uncle's safe, because if you lose this, you lost everything. If you scroll up, you'll see the $8 a month, or the $8 for the first year right there. It just cycled through the slide.
Yeah.
And then the other thing on the right side, you see that phone number? There's a prominently displayed 800 number, and they actually answer it. Shockingly, they answer the phone.
Amazing.
So
That's toll free.
that's toll free. 1-855 is a toll free number. Well, with cell phones these days, it doesn't matter as much, but yes, it's a toll free number. And you can't beat it. And for the biggest deal for backup is not doing it yourself. And I'll be honest with you, people forget to do it, and people do it once, and then 6 months later, they haven't done it again, and they're stuck because they've lost 6 months. I get that a lot. I got a backup except for the last 3 months, or I have a backup except for the last year. And now it's, again, you still missing data. When you have online backup, you've taken that away from you. And as long as you can pay attention and see that email you got and be like, oh, I got an email, it showed up, great, you are set. And it's hard to beat with support. It really, really is. They do business stuff as well. I do them for my businesses too. I use these same guys for backing up servers. I use them for backing up network attached storage devices. They do everything: PCs, Macs, and mobile devices.
What is the speed of the backup?
Well, your initial backup will probably take a long time, because the home internet upload speed on most people's internet is asymmetrical. So you might have 200 megs down, but you only upload it like 30 megs. So I can never give a good time on that, because they are usually much quicker than your internet connection allows for.
So Eddie, I've gone back to the start. We're just going to take another minute or two, because we've run a little long, but we still have some time left in our session. Do you want to say something about batteries?
So yeah, and batteries, that's going to be our number for laptop computers, whether it's a Mac or a PC. And we've actually done, I think this week, 6 Mac batteries or 5 Mac batteries. On PCs, a bad battery can keep it from booting. It can prevent it from running at full speed, because some laptops, some Lenovo's, if their battery is bad, they actually won't run full speed. They will run at reduced speed, because they use that battery as like to turbo the laptop. But when your battery won't hold a charge, there's 2 big things to look at. Obviously, a bad battery. The second one, though, is the jack and the AC adapter, because those 2 also play a huge part. People come in a lot and say like, oh, my laptop works, my battery doesn't charge. And I'm like, well, you may not have a bad battery. I'm like, well, no, my laptop works. And I'm like, yes, HPs and Dells and Apples have little extra pins in them. And this is something most people don't know. And we suggest people to bring them in whenever they're having a problem, but they have that little extra pin and it broadcasts a signal. And if that pin gets messed up, the computer will still run and it'll still function and power, but it won't charge the battery. And that little pin just basically says, hey, trust me, I'm real. So we do get a lot of issues with bad batteries and the cords. And the best thing to always try, one is a new power pack. And we offer no charge. You can come by, we can plug in your power cord, check it with genuine AC adapters. And that's something we tell people. Genuine AC adapters are super important. Generic ones are not made to the same specification. And while they may power your laptop for a short time, they usually do not have clean electricity, and they will damage your laptop over time. There are some good third parties, and they will be certified, UL certified. You guys probably heard of them, but definitely an important thing. And
Underwriter Laboratories, I believe.
Yep, totally. They basically test electronics to make sure they don't catch on fire and that they don't harm other electronics.
So that's a really important point about the problems that you can have with your batteries, the kinds of things that can affect your cords and connectors, and that people can check them out, for free if they have a concern at your store.
Yeah, no charge at all for checking power jacks and all that. And if you come in and we see your jack's broken, we give people a price right there. The little piece of plastic inside, that's broken. We usually tell people flat out, this is what's wrong. But a lot of times, if it's a battery, it's internal, we do those. I would say about 25 to 30% of the time, it's not a battery issue, it's a power pack issue on Dells, HPs, and Apples. Yeah, I mean, lots of Apple, and on Apples, and I'll say the specific, people don't realize it, but you have to clean them because they are magnetic, and because it doesn't slide in and touch every time. That little area there, you gotta sometimes clean them, and even like a pencil eraser or just a Q-tip, you can clean off all that gunk off that little MagSafe connector.
Yeah, even a toothpick works fine. Also in your iPhones and whatever there in that slot.
Well, I don't get into iPhones, but I know MagSafe on Apples, they have a unique situation where it actually needs to be cleaned once in a while.
One more thing, Eddie. We've read in the news about global shortage on parts. How has it affected your business in any way in obtaining parts that you need for things that you sell?
So if you've heard about like the auto companies having to stop production lines, we want to sell computers. I have people in here that want laptops, Lenovo's, this, that. I can't supply them because Lenovo can't supply them. Lenovo, when I went to go order some product, was at a 4 to 6 week wait time on shipping. And graphic cards, if you guys have probably heard, graphic cards are an extreme shortage. And with everyone being home for the pandemic, everyone decided to build computers. So all our stock went away, and now we have shortages. So we can't build those gaming computers. And yeah, it definitely has affected, because there's weeks where we can't get CPUs. There's the price of memory has gone up. Everything has been affected by having the chip shortage, because it's not just like that. You think of the big chip in your computer. When you think about it, a lot of times it's those little capacitors and all those little other pieces. When you look at a circuit board, it's all those other little parts.
Okay.
So any last questions for Eddie? Edward, sorry. I knew I was.
It's all good.
Huh. So was this helpful for people?
I would like to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie.
Mhm.
Laptop.
Yes, sir.
And looking at it, it said something about keeping the battery at 80%. Do you have any feelings about whether the battery should be fully charged or partially charged?
I have not attached this issue in a long time. So I have sold Lenovo laptops 15 years. And Lenovo laptops for a good couple of years would ship their computers only charging batteries to 80%. And what happened is I'd say probably 80% of the people came back saying, my battery is bad, it doesn't charge. The fact is that not charging a lithium ion battery to its full capacity is good for your battery's life. Keeping a battery between 20 to 80% will extend the functional storage capacity of your battery. I can't have an exact number. There's no exact number, but it will absolutely keep your battery running longer. The reality, no one wants to monitor their battery. No one wants to lose an hour or two of battery life. In the end, we don't know. I can't tell you a quantified number, how much you save. But it becomes a hassle because you have to pay attention. Am I staying below 80 and above 20? Tesla cars do this. If you own a Tesla and you fully charge it, you have not fully charged it. Your battery is only charged to about 80%. During the wildfires a couple of years ago, it was in the news that Tesla extended the battery life. And they did that by letting the batteries run longer down below 20% life and to charge above 80%. So this is true in any lithium ion battery. It's true in cars and computers. Your more expensive battery systems like in a Tesla are already have all of these mechanisms in place. As far as your laptop goes, if you want it to last longer, don't go above 80%. If you don't want to be hassled by it, buy a new battery. And that's it. You'll buy a new battery a little shorter, but it'll still work.
Irving, I'd like to address this because in my other class, we talked about battery health. And I believe when you buy a phone, that's the #1 question that consumers are asking. How long is that battery going to stay charged, when I do it? And it's not a good idea even to let that battery charge overnight at 100%. Lithium ion batteries have memories. And you don't want to, you can actually turn on low power mode in your settings there or in your control center like I showed you. And that will automatically give you a warning that it's going to charge down. When it gets down to 20%, you're going to see a red box in the upper right-hand corner, probably in your iPhone or iPad. And I'll bet on Android, there's something on there for battery health as well. But the battery health app gives you an idea of what you're doing. You can also turn on in your iPhone something called screen time, which will limit the time that you can stay on your apps during the day. So that also prevents, reductions in battery life. There are other things you can do, like reduce your brightness control, change your auto lock to the lowest amount. There's so many other tips that you can look at, but I think that's an important issue for everyone to consider, even when you're going to buy a new phone. That's the first question I would ask.
Thanks, Barry.
Right?
Yep, and Mackie has a question.
Yes, Mackie.
You unmute yourself, Mackie.
Is Edward still there?
Yep.
Okay.
I usually run my computer with it plugged in. In fact, I keep my computer plugged in at all times. Is that charging it to 100%? And should I be running it off of the instead?
So your laptop has a system in it called a power management system. The reality is some manufacturers, you can get software to stop your charging at 80%. Modern laptops do not trickle charge your battery. So when it's 100%, it does not try to keep charging your battery. Keeping your battery at 100% for an extended period of time will remove some of its life. The question is how much, and does it really matter to you in the long run? Because I've seen some that it only saves you about 20% of the life of the battery. And if you're going to buy a new battery after 3 years already, okay, so you save 6 months, you save 3 months. It can save battery life, but then the question goes, does it matter? Because if you're going to buy a new battery in 3 years and spend $100, you save 3 months, you maybe save 6 months. It becomes a personal choice because keeping your battery charged between those numbers can be difficult and it's not convenient. So it really does become a battle of convenience versus do I save 10% life or 15 or 20% of that battery's lifetime?
Edward, would you recommend running the laptop with the battery out, remove the physical battery and just run it on the charger?
No, laptops can run without battery, but as I stated, some laptops use the battery for their turbo boosting. So if, let's say, they ship some of the newer laptops with 45-watt chargers, sometimes the computer needs more juice, and what it'll do is it'll drain power from the battery, even while it's plugged in. And that's a common occurrence now on some laptops.
So it's not a problem to keep it plugged in all the time.
No, you're going to replace it sooner or later. You might lose three months. Who knows? You might lose 3 or 4 months of battery life. That's it.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're unplugging and plugging it in all the time.
So Edward, another question for you.
Mhm.
Do you get people who come in and say, I can't get into my computer. I can't remember what my password is. I
Yep.
don't know. So
Yeah,
what do you do?
So for that, there's 3 big things. One is that the person has simply forgot their password. 2, they have a Microsoft account or an online account. And again, this is Windows based, not Apple. And we do this for Apple also. Don't worry about you guys. We can remove passwords too. And then there's also the point where Windows just has a problem and can't log in. Now, if you have a Microsoft account and you still have internet access, you can reset your own password. You follow the directions, you go to the Microsoft website, and you can do a password reset. And as long as that computer is connected to the internet over Wi-Fi or Ethernet, it will update its password from the internet and let you log in. If per se you don't have that ability, or you don't know the password, or it's not a Microsoft password, we actually reset passwords here for $39. It takes about 15 minutes. And we can get you on your way. It's nothing to panic about. Now, if your computer's not logging in, well, then you have a Windows issue. And a lot of times people think they forgot their password when in fact they're getting an error that Windows can't log them in. And at that point, that can be a myriad of issues. And that's a great reason to have a backup of your computer. That's a great point to have one at.
Okay.
Because if you had a backup, you could go backwards a week or a few days and be up and running again.
Great. So any last words that you want to say, Eddie? Edward?
Yeah, and one thing we didn't really get to is the update messages and upgrade messages. Like, people get really scared sometimes because they don't know when a program says it has an update versus it being fake. And we see that a lot, is that people go to websites and they have fake updates for their computer. You don't ever have to trust a pop-up on your computer that you have an update. If you see a pop-up come up for a program, open the program, find the check for update button in the program and hit it. Because this way you don't have to worry that you're clicking some errant button. You can go to the program. So if you know Skype came up and you saw an update, Skype needs an update, and you're like, I don't know if that's real. You don't need to. You open Skype, you go to help, you hit check for update. And right there, you'll know that you're using the proper update mechanism.
Great, thank you. And Judy has one last question.
Right.
When you said your battery life should be between 20 and 80%, was that referring only to the computer, or does that apply to an iPhone?
So lithium ion batteries all can have issues with the way they store data, and it's less memory as long as it's more what and it's really technical, the little ion dendrites, the little the way that it configures starts having issues. As far as iPhones go, all modern lithium ion battery devices have a buffer that you don't see. Laptops were one of the last things to start getting that, and the newer model laptops coming out all do actually not fully charge their battery.
Right.
That said, there's no real easy mechanism for phones to prevent that. And yes, charging your battery less and not wearing it down all the way will extend the life of the battery. And there are apps to do that, I think, these days, actually. And, Apple themselves, when your battery starts going bad, they start throttling the power to keep that battery running. So
I was
one of the
actually referring to the 80 to 100% range as opposed to the 20% range.
Well, they both cause issues. Totally discharging a lithium ion battery is never great for lithium ion battery. It's not the same as a NIM-H. Back in the day, you would do the cycling where you would charge and discharge it 3 times fully. Lithium ion batteries do not like that.
NIMH is nickel, what is it, nickel hydride?
Nickel metal hydride.
Right.
Yeah. Those are the old batteries, like in your power drills before everything went lithium ion. Lithium ions have more of a problem with them becoming pillows. And if you ever seen some old cell phones, remember the old Nokias, Everyone had that little Nokia phone with Snake on it. And if your battery was going bad, you could spin your phone. That was the battery expanding. And that's really the issue we get from having overly charged batteries, is that they start expanding. That Note 8, you remember the Note 8 got recalled because it started fires on planes?
Right.
That's because the battery had no room for expansion. So the battery would hit the aluminum walls inside the phone and blow up. And that was the issue, is that batteries also do slightly expand. And if they keep too high for too long, they keep expanding and expanding until they bulge out. We get computers with keyboards that are like puffed out. I wish I had one here. We just changed the battery on it. Actually, hold on. I'll show you guys. Give me 10
Wait a second.
seconds.
I only want to know if you
Oh,
can
never mind.
charge your phone from 80 to 100.
You can.
I always charge it up to 100%.
Do you
Yeah,
have
you
an
can charge
iPhone?
it.
Do you have an
Uh-huh.
iPhone, Judy?
Yes, an iPhone 7.
Oh, yeah. Well, you go to your battery health section. It will actually
I
tell you.
know all that. I'm only
Yeah.
referencing the.
Don't-
question. You
So
said
don't do it, Judy.
No,
If you can avoid it, don't leave it plugged in overnight.
No, I don't ever do that. And I never.
Watch it when it's charging. When you get close to 80%, unplug it.
But in many, many instances, 100% is not 100%.
Mhm.
100% is 80% because it leaves a buffer. It will not charge to 100%.
that's accurate. Yeah.
That's what I was talking about, power management systems. Most of the
Right.
laptops you see these days, they have fixed for that. Now, there are still devices. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. There are still some devices, laptop wise, on the cheaper end of the spectrum that they don't respect that.
Okay,
And-
Larry,
Yeah.
I just want to say for Android phones, there is an actual app that will set an alarm, a voice reminder, and you could set the alarm levels at a low level or a high level, or both. I mean, so I use the app, and I have an alarm at 20% and I have an alarm at 80%, and it
Aren't
tells
you
me.
clever?
great, great.
On
Okay.
Android and Google Play, it's called Battery Alarm, Full and Low Battery Warning.
Want to type that in the chat?
Sure.
Thank
Okay,
you, Larry.
Carol, I
So-
think we need to wind down now.
Yep, absolutely. So Eddie, you want to say anything in your goodbye?
Yeah,
Thank
so-
you very much.
I want to thank all you guys for listening today. If you guys are not familiar with us, Carol definitely give you information about us. We've been here for 23 years. If anyone was at this presentation today, has an issue with their battery or their computer, we do not charge you to check out your power pack or anything else like that. And if anyone here today does have an issue, just mention you were at the presentation day and we'll give you a free diagnose. Normally that's $39 if you don't get the computer service. So any machine you want to bring in right now, mention you were here today and we'll give you a free diagnose on the machine.
And you've also got a pretty good bunch of parts there, you know, like cables and things like that, adapters.
Oh
that
yeah,
you
we
sell
have.
Also.
Yeah, we have genuine brand. We have genuine AC adapters. Thank you, Carol. We always stock genuine AC adapters. If we don't have genuine ones, we're going to have UL listed. Like all my new USB-C chargers, because a lot of your laptops use cell phone style chargers now. They are UL listed. So we have USB cords, we have the chargers, genuine Lenovo, genuine this. We do not ever recommend the Amazon stuff. So we do keep the genuine chargers in because they're always the best for
Okay.
your computer.
All right, Carol, let's unshare the screen, please.
Okay.
So now let's give Edward Greenberg a big round of virtual applause
Thank you guys.
and wish you a happy Rosh Hashanah,
Yes, for everyone
And-
celebrating, happy Rosh Hashanah.
which means really the head of the year. I forget what number it is.
Oh, I don't know, but I'm always up for dancing with the Torah.
5782.
5782.
Yes.
Or you don't look like a day over 5627. So that's great. It looks good on you. So also a smooth and easy fast to those who celebrate Yom Kippur. And I want to mention one thing, that if you have any questions about the educational part of your computer, how to use something learn how to use Word or Excel or any program, we're going to refer everything to Carol Friedman, our vice president. Any questions on instructional technology, she is the expert. Normally, we just send people over to Eddie for repair issues as he discussed. So if you know somebody, don't send them over to Eddie for educational issues. He doesn't have the time for that, to show you how to use Word and things like that. We'll send him right over to Carol, okay?
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, I actually want to say Carol is if customers come in, Carol is my go-to for anyone with how to use my computer. Like, she is my go-to. I send everyone to Carol as well.
Okay, folks, want to thank you for attending. And as I had mentioned in the reminder, our next class is going to be 3 weeks from today, because keeping on a bi-weekly schedule, we normally would meet the first and third Friday, but when a month has 5 Fridays, we skip that intervening week, which incidentally happens to be the first and second days of the holiest Jewish holiday, Yom Kippur. So I wouldn't be there anyway on that Friday, the 17th. And I imagine many of us would not. So we wish you all continued best health. And thank you so much for participating and making this meeting, our continuous meetings, extremely successful. And I thank the members of my board for their support. If you have any questions, you can reach about the computer. You can reach Carol at callingtocarol@gmail.com. If you have any questions that you would like to ask Eddie, I can give you his email if that's all right, Carol.
I don't know, and Eddie's off. No, I don't think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Eddie listed his phone number there
Okay.
for Computers Direct.
I don't know. If you did.
Yeah, phone number is always better. I get about 500 emails a day. So sending me an email means you're not going to hear from me for a week.
Give us your phone number, Eddie, please.
Oh, yeah. Our number here is 954-480-8405. And it's not just me here. Anyone here can help you. We've all been in the computer business for over 20 years. So anyone here can definitely help you guys right out.
And his number is in the chat. And I'm available for coming to your home and working side by side with you. I do that on an hourly charge basis, and I'm happy to talk to you about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this, what you saw today, I need to say was for information purposes only, and any opinions, whether expressed orally or in the chat box, are not necessarily those of the Deerfield Beach Computer Club Board of Directors or the Deerfield Beach Computer Club. But I think you'll all agree, I think my total today was 35, which is an excellent total, one of our best. And it's a tribute to you, Edward, for how popular you are with all of us. So I want to thank all of you again for your participation, continued good health, and keep looking at the club site, which I hope you're supporting by going to it several times during the week and staying on it. Our next class will be Friday, September 24th at 10 a.m. at our usual time. And we will be posting information that as time goes by. So with that, I wish you all the best, and we look forward to seeing you in 3 weeks. So wave goodbye, everyone. And see ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Barry. Everybody have a good day.
Yes, everybody have a good one.